Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and as you are aware, patch 4.2 drops tomorrow. With that, there's a bunch of different additions for each of the races affected by scheduled change. On screen right now are all the additions to Zinch. Those are new units, new generic characters, and they can also be found in various different other races such as the Warriors of Chaos, the Beastmen, and also Daniel's Demon Undivided faction. The first edition is the Chaos Lord of Tzeentch. This is available to the Tzeentch faction and the Warriors of Chaos factions, which can make use of Tzeentchian units. So what sets him apart from the other Tzeentchian characters is he's not a spellcaster. He is fully focused on melee, and as you can tell from the stats, he does it pretty well. As he's also Tzeentchian, he does have a number of abilities which are able to buff up your own troops, or even get a little bit of a hex onto some enemy forces. So he's still got a little bit of magic in him, but the main thing is that he's a melee powerhouse, and he's great at what he does with anti-large, he's got barrier, he's got a very good shield too, and he's a melee expert. You can recruit them from the very beginning of your campaign as a Tzeentchian faction. Obviously with the Warriors of Chaos you'll still have to do the whole devote mechanic, and yep, you do have a skill line which focuses very heavily on doing some more damage, increasing his stats all around. You've also got stuff like Heroic Killing Blow, which, yeah, pretty good. You can boost up the capabilities, also physical resistance for your Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch, the Knights and the Chosen, which obviously does mean that if you want to focus on a warrior heavier build, then now it's probably the time. Those of you who used to play Warhammer Fantasy Tabletop know that Tzeentchian builds were quite good, and giving them extra physical resistance is obviously even better. You'll also be able to increase your magical reserve capacity because you can attach spellcasters to your army, so you're still getting the benefit of being a Tzeentchian army. The Chaos Lord of Tzeentch also has a variety of different mount options, including the Chaos Steed, the Disc of Tzeentch quite early on actually, and the Chaos Chariot. This is one of the best frontline warriors you can possibly have. It's not so great at dealing with other characters, even though yes, you still have a decent amount of armor piercing, so it's still going to excel, but it is there to take out big monsters, no problem, and yeah, having it fly around really quickly on a disc is going to be beneficial for you. It's also going to make your Doom Knights a lot more viable as you can have characters who support it. With the character in question being the Exalted Hero of Tzeentch, another melee character, this time being designed in the style of that of a 90s miniature, which looks absolutely amazing to see it kind of get that glow up. And yeah, melee focused, once again with a halberd, but this time without a shield. But this character doesn't need a shield, this character is up close and personal because he really wants to hurt people. Once again, this character has a number of abilities, one of them being quite good. It's the whole barrier replenishment and also missile resistance because, you know, if you're going to be flying around on the Disc of Tzeentch, you're going to want one. But there's also an even better one, which is the Book of Sorrows. This puts Fate of Buna on an enemy and also has a number of debuffs. It is absolutely wonderful and something that you're going to be using throughout your campaign if you decide to play as any of the Tzeentchian factions or factions that can take Tzeentchian units. As you've been able to see from his stats, he is Tzeentchian, but he is by no means a nerd, able to do quite a lot of damage and get stronger as you start progressing, especially if you decide to play him in campaign. He is really fast to recruit. All you'll need is pretty much the building, which allows you to get Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch, and you'll have your options available to you. There's a few different visual looks to them, which is obviously quite good. It's obviously quite important to see a little bit of difference there, but the main thing is, again, it focuses very heavily on damage. There's a number of skills that you can take, which will either increase its leadership or, you know, increase replenishment if you want to do a little bit more damage. You do also have some other abilities that you'll be able to pick up as you start progressing through there. It's definitely a very good hero which can act as a support character, but can also really dish out the damage. Again, you can get a Chaos Steed mount, a Disc of Tzeentch, or a Chaos Chariot, so you've got all the options that you would have had on the tabletop too. Now you might be wondering why I and possibly a few others have been excited about this character, and it's mostly because now you actually have some proper protection. Tzeentch did lack from it. You had a lot of Chaos Sorcerers, which yes, were quite decent in melee, but they weren't there to do big damage. You've now got a hero that is able to do the damage that you need, especially when you're fighting against other forces which might be more resistant to you, like for example Khorne forces or dwarfs. Now we do have to talk about a very odd choice with the Senticles of Tzeentch. I still haven't really gotten accustomed to the fact that we've got these, however, yeah, they are pretty good. The fact is, they've got barrier, they are able to do a lot of damage because, you know, Vanguard and also great weapons. Really good for the flanks and the rear if you're playing as a Tzeentchian faction. It is quite beneficial to have a unit like this, and they can get stronger with spells that have been cast, alongside having stuff like Primal Fury makes them very, very tasty. I've been able to get a few games with them as the Beastmen, and I'll tell you what, they do actually pack the punch. Speaking of which, they are available for the Beastmen in the best way possible in my opinion, as they are available in the same cap as the rest of the Senticles, unlike the Zangors who find themselves very much alone. That will probably be increased later on once we start seeing the other Gors come in future DLCs, but the Senticles definitely do take advantage of this, as that means as soon as you want to, you can just start replacing for the much harder hitting versions. When it comes to the Tzeentchian faction, interestingly enough, they'll be located in the same barracks building as the Chaos Warriors of Zinch, meaning that you'll be able to pick them up as soon as tier 3. If you're playing as Kairos, you're going to get them extremely quickly. The Changelings a little bit later, because obviously the Changelings are a bit different, but yeah, it's weird in a good way. But the last new unit is something that makes me rather happy. Not only did they recently double down on certain things about IP, but it kind of proves that, yes, we have access to the Storm of Chaos IP. These are Changebringers, which were introduced during the whole 6th edition Storm of Chaos campaign, and they are Flamers of Tzeentch on Disc of Tzeentch, which I know might not sound that exciting to some people, but you can already see some big changes. Unlike the Burning Chariots, this is a smaller chariot, essentially. The disc technically counts as a chariot, but that means that you're getting much more entities at a much quicker pace too, because they have 105 speed baseline, meaning that they're going to be able to get behind the enemy lines and fire directly below them and do a lot of damage. You'll be able to test these out for yourself from the beginning of your campaign if you decide to play as the Changeling, because yes, some starting armies have been updated, and Changebringers from the very beginning are just absolutely ridiculous. It'll take a while to recruit them with Kairos, as they are a tier 4 unit, but I would say it's fairly justified considering on the damage output that they're able to do. They are a really interesting unit, and I've been able to just do a lot of stuff with them. The 105 speed, making them pretty much on par with that of Suneshi chariots and so on, is absolutely ridiculous. So, what we're going to do here is I'm going to showcase a battle where I'm using a Tzeentchian army with no spellcasters whatsoever, that's actually quite an interesting one, versus a randomly generated Nurgle force, which, in theory, should already be better than I am. But the idea is to show off the additions which have just come in through this patch. So 2 units of Senticles of Zinch, 1 unit of Changebringers, a Exalted Hero of Zinch, and a Chaos Lord of Zinch. The hero's on a chariot and the Lord is on a disc. I wanted to try and go for this type of feeling. The problem is, obviously, when you're playing custom battles, to keep things fair, there is a money cap, or else, you know, the AI starts going freaking insane. But from what I've been able to experience, not only just in the battles, but also in campaign, I'm having a lot of fun. The Changebringers do a lot of damage for what they do. There was a tiny bit of stutter there, and this is mostly because of this map. It's unfortunate, but this is a testing map more than anything else. Pretty much one direct unit of Changebringers onto Plague Toads took them down to half HP. Afterwards, you'd want to split into other stuff because they've done the majority of the other damage. What you want to do is just separate them and kind of do as much to multiple units as possible. It's really, really good for what it does. I was pleasantly surprised. Same thing with the Senticles. Now, the Senticles would get a lot better if I had a Spellcaster, because obviously the bonuses affected are from the Spellcasters, but just seeing it do some damage. Same thing with the Chaos Lord of Zinch being able to really, really hurt, or the Exalted Hero getting some damage out. I was fairly surprised to see very good melee output from the Tzeentchian forces. Obviously, I've still got blue horrors there, and I do have some pink horrors supporting it, because, I mean, I'm not going to just go full melee. But, yeah, works like a charm. I feel like this is going to be a really good addition. When I was playing with the Beastmen, I did have a little bit of a campaign with them. Liked them there, thought it was very useful, very good if you got a Brave Shaman, or 2 if you're just casting a few spells here. And with the Warriors of Chaos, with a little bit of campaign there, I was playing as Village because naturally that was a character that I wanted to avoid without having the melee characters available. It definitely felt a lot better having the Lords there, or having the heroes protecting the spellcasters. This is the thing, when it comes to a DLC of this styling that we're going to be getting from now on apparently, when you're looking towards the Chaos stuff actually is there to not only help the Monogod faction, but also the other factions too. Shadows of Change was wonderful for the Beastmen, as we've been able to see. Not only do we have access to the Incarnate Elemental and the Zangors, but now they have access to Senticles of Tzeentch too. It's been wonderful for them. The Warriors of Chaos have now been able to get a lot more from this, not just the Mutilate Vortex Beast and the Cockatrice, but also now the Melee Lord and Melee Hero. It's helped 3 factions at once. Well, technically 4, because Daniel gets stuff too, but who cares about Daniel? And I imagine that we're going to see this coming forward with Thrones of Decay and likely a future Slaanesh DLC and Khorne DLC. When it comes to this, I really do regret in the battle not taking at least one spellcaster, because it's very obvious that, yeah, sometimes the faction does need it. But overall, I would say that now Tzeentch feels more on par with that of Khorne. All the Chaos Monogod factions should be looking towards Khorne to be on par with, as they already have more variants of, say, for example, Chaos Warriors, for example. It's a shame that we didn't get these for Tzeentch, but I understand that they want to keep things, separated to their proper army styles in terms of theme, which is still pretty silly, but still, you've got 2 types. You've got the halberds, and you've also got the ones with sword and board, so they're able to do enough as it stands. Now, with all these units, you might be wondering about campaign changes. As far as I'm aware, there have been no major campaign changes for Tzeentch, but you still have the added benefit of pretty much the new Lord options, Hero options, unit options. With the Changeling, I haven't played it too much. It's one of those factions which we'll talk about the second review, because I've got to do a second review for Shadows of Change, naturally, as new stuff has been added in. What I will say, however, is that Tzeentch does feel a lot better if you're playing the baseline one, so Kairos. Kairos is definitely going to be enjoying these new options, especially as you're going to be fighting quite a lot of really heavy hitters. I did mention it earlier before, but having access to Melee Lords and Melee Heroes, especially ones that can do a little bit more damage, it's going to be very helpful when you decide to deal with Thorek. Or better yet said, when Thorek turns around and notices you, as he is very, very resistant to magic, and it can be a bit of a pain to get rid of him. So having a Lord who is able to melee hit without too much of a problem is perfectly fine, and believe me, from what I've been able to experience, I did around, I think, about 150 turns on Tzeentch. They do last quite a lot, you can use them, and they will stay relevant throughout your campaign. Same thing with all the other units. They all fit very nicely and will be there for a very long time throughout your campaign, depending on how your playstyle is, of course. But yeah, overall, very happy with what I've been able to see. I think that this is going to be a good push forward. I was rather concerned that the units were going to be just ones that weren't going to be needed for the army and just some stuff that got scrapped. But at the end of the day, all of these have shown their usefulness. Still not too keen on the Senticles of Zinch, in all honesty. It should have been something else, but they still are very, very good at what they do. Ultimately, I think the only negative about the update, for Zinch at least, is no beaks. For some reason, that's something that's just not going to happen, but it's only a visual thing and mods can kind of fix that. Overall, I'm slightly more favorable to Zinch now as a faction, as a whole, as the new units actually do make them a little bit more fun. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. I'm going to let the rest of the battle play out just in case you want to see how it goes. Again, spellcasters would have been very, very useful here, but given the limited amount of money that you have for those battles and what I wanted to showcase in terms of the units, I think overall it was fine. So I'll see you all again very, very soon, guys. Have a good day. There's going to be multiple videos. I'm not sure if this one's coming out first or this one's coming out second, but yeah, have a good one, guys.
Empowered by change! Zinch is chosen!
Servants of the Changer! Find a victim! We march! Great Conspirator! Hear us!
Lord of Zinch!
We serve Zinch! Exalted hero of Zinch! Retreating!
I have my master's favor! Onwards! Move! Advancing! Warhammer.